And at this time, we will proceed with the next of our first keynote presentation, and that's by Professor Janis Alnis, also from the University of Latvia. And he will give an overview of a decade of quantum optics laboratory experiments here in Riga. Please go ahead, Janis.
Thank you. I guess good morning. It's a pleasure to be here and a big honor to be keynote speaker. Thank you to organizers for collecting all of us together. And yeah, we mostly know each other for many years. And it has been already 10 years since I'm back in Latvia and started the Quantum Optics Laboratory, a small copy of Munich, where there is Institute of Quantum Optics. And yeah, for researchers nowadays, it's quite important citation. One can see how important is your publication if other people are citing you. For me, most important publications are from Munich with Ted Hensch. And the second most important are with Sune Svanberg, gas of oxygen dispersed in porous media. And also we could generate UV radiation at 254 nanometers with diode lasers, which was tricky at the time. And here you can see a picture of me in this building when I was a master student. And I was lucky to go abroad to Kaiserslautern and work on sodium beam apparatus with Klaus Bergman, Aigar Sekers, and actually we went with Arnold Zubels by car to Germany at that time, 3 days trip. And my supervisor was Professor Mark Salzinch. And at that time, study was of sodium-potassium dimer in external electric field, and there was extra splitting of molecular lines. So I had different experience. And in Lund, we learned that there are very wonderful diode lasers, which are easy to operate. You switch it on and it works. And at that time appeared blue diode lasers, and we could send red and blue laser light to nonlinear crystal and generate UV. Some frequency generation. And it was amazing to see mercury isotopes in absorption spectrum. And the idea was to transfer diode laser spectroscopy to Riga. In Riga, we did rubidium spectroscopy in magnetic field. And it's basically Hanle effect, which Sune is one of pioneers. And the same rubidium in magnetic field. And we looked at circular polarization, and it manifested to alignment to orientation conversion. But afterwards, I have not been doing much with this. But yeah, these Hanle signals, they are very wonderful to get hyperfine constants, A and B. And about will be later slide. And then I was in Ted Hensch group postdoc, and Ted Hensch before was postdoc of Arthur Schawlow, and if I understand correctly, Sune also was postdoc of Arthur Schawlow. And at that time, they invented the tunable dye laser. Nowadays in Riga, we want to use instead of dye quantum dots and get them lasing. And so this cycle repeats every 20 years, but new materials appear. And in Munich, I worked on hydrogen precision spectroscopy. We worked with hydrogen beam because it is not possible to laser trap atomic hydrogen. And yeah, in 10 years, we improved the precision from 14th digit to 15th digit. And yeah, it's very slow process. And to measure 15 digits, you need a reference clock, a cesium fountain clock, which is in Braunschweig. And we had a project to build fiber link to Braunschweig using commercial fiber network. Every 100 kilometers was erbium doped amplifier. And the idea was to send the frequency stabilized light to Braunschweig and then back and interferometrically stabilize link lengths. And for this, it was crucial to have a laser with very long coherence lengths. Coherence length should be longer than these 2000 kilometers. Yeah, so idea for very stable lasers came from Jen Hall group in Gila, how to mount stabilization cavities that it is less sensitive to vibrations. It was so-called midplane mounting, that you mount something in this vertical midplane. Here are mirrors, and this part gets longer by gravity, and this shrinks, and total effect is zero. And what was new in Munich, we learned from hydrogen maser constructions that it is good to put temperature control into vacuum chamber, because vacuum is the best heat insulator. And we tried to put Peltier elements in vacuum, and they worked surprisingly well. There was no outgassing and no problems. And this allowed us to make compact laser stabilization resonators, which were later copied in several research institutes and finally commercialized by Menlo Systems. And they make cavity for fiber optics wavelengths, 1.5 micron, which can be sent over fiber networks from one city to another. And the dream is that maybe in some future you will have fiber output from wall where you get very stable light. And we try to commercialize developments from Munich in Latvia. There was a company called the Institute of Biomechanics and Physical Research. In Latvia is allowed to establish institute if there are 5 doctors. Yeah, we had director in all times, Igars, very successful. And we built diode laser, stabilized to rubidium and stabilized to Fabry-Perot resonator in vacuum chamber, using not super mirrors, but mirrors which are in titanium sapphire lasers. They are broadband and quite high quality. And finally, this equipment landed in my laboratory. Yeah, so I came back to Riga in 2013 in Arnold Dubel's project, FOTONIKA-LV. We could buy Menlo Systems frequency comb, and then we had diode laser and Fabry-Perot resonator. Idea was to make resonators for other groups broad, but Apparently, it's easier to live on European projects, salaries, and to build hardware and try to sell it, and then it breaks and you need to repair. And I noticed that I like to learn new things. If you develop one project, one product, you are stuck to this one product. You need to improve it, and after 10th time, you don't learn new things anymore. So, yeah, after I turn more to research. And yeah, this was in this building, 5th floor. We tried to measure rubidium with frequency comb as a test. Rubidium hyperfine structure is well known from old days, but as soon as Wamberg has measured, and we tried to measure the same with frequency comb. And we run into a problem that saturation spectroscopy signals, they shifted frequency with intensity. And for different lines, it was different shifts. And we could not get better values than about 100 kilohertz. Even if we use frequency comb, which is a very good source for frequency references. But there was some hidden problem with rubidium atoms. And if we compare constants A and B with literature values, we saw that our data did not help to improve the constants. Probably there are many other things which need to take in account, like pressure shifts, and if there is buffer gas in the cell, and temperature effects. And so then we did not go more in this direction, but instead IGARS won a project on whispering gallery mode resonators. And here is our group in 2016. On the left is my first PhD student, Inga Britze. And 1 year later, we have painted the walls, and the group increased. We have Roman Witters, who is from Ukraine. Now he established his own laboratory on biosensors and nanomaterials. And on the left is Alma Ubele, daughter of Arnolds. She was also studying physics, so it's like physics dynasty.
Now she is in Munich University, finalizing master degree in atmospheric physics.
Yeah, and in 2019, we moved to the new building. Was a lot of stress to move frequency comb and pack everything and unpack. And then we got 3 laboratories. In every laboratory need some screwdrivers and yeah, some basic small things. But conditions are much better. I feel now sometimes like I was feeling in Sweden, in Sune's group, modern laboratory. Last year, our group was about 7 people. Inga Britze got a PhD. So it's my first PhD student. And in the faculty, there are more access to young students. But of course, they are not very skilled. And so we need some simple project in Latvia, what we can do. And one of simplest resonator is glass ball or water droplet. And it does not need any mirrors. It is working by total external reflection. And light can run 1 meter in 1 millimeter sphere. So it's amazing. And it is sensitive to something which sticks to the surface, because the light runs many times around and every time interacts with the particles. And to model it, we need to use wave optics. We model in COMSOL. I have a PhD student, Christian Draguns, who is only modeling in COMSOL. He likes it. And IGARS likes modeling in COMSOL. And it allows to strengthen papers if there is not only experimental data, but also modeling. And in 2018, we could go to Caltech and JPL to learn their expertise on microresonators and frequency combs. And in Latvia, we typically melt our microspheres from silica glass, which is used in telecom. It's very optically pure material. And surface tension makes a nice round smooth surface. And another thing what we need, it's how to couple light into this microsphere. We use so-called tapered fiber, which is telecom fiber stretched on hydrogen flame to a diameter of a couple of micrometers, and then there is some portion of light traveling in an evanescent wave outside the glass. And the tapered fiber coupling is important for telecom, where the wavelength is invisible and everything is in fiber optics. So then another technology is to melt microspheres with CO2 laser. This technology we learned from Līvāni, light guide optics, where they melt fiber bundles with CO2 laser. And it is a good method because there is no wind and there is no hydrocarbons or water vapor. So CO2 laser is a really wonderful technique. And by putting silica rod in a lens, in a motor, one can spin it, and with CO2 laser machine narrow rim on the rod, and that can serve as a whispering gallery mode resonator. And diameter can be tuned to needs. Another technique we tried is polishing. It's like old lens maker work with abrasives, but nowadays it's too time consuming. No student wants to spend 4 hours to polish one rod. And about applications, our most successful application in Latvia was glucose biosensor. And it was together with Roman Viter and Professor Romanavicius from Vilnius. And we could sense glucose in millimolar concentration, which is typical for blood. And it's quite small concentration if you compare with sugar water, which you mix 1%, 5%, 10% in cola. So this is about 1,000th of it in blood. And why we could reach it? Because we coated the surface of microsphere with glucose oxidase. It is a protein which is used in blood tests for glucose sensing. It reacts with glucose and it produces hydrogen peroxide, which changes color of this test. And in our case, chemical reaction changed the surface layer and changed the evanescent wave optical length. So there was shift of resonance. And maybe this can be developed in future for measurements on chip. So this is what Lorenzo said, that we need to find some specialty in Latvia, which we are good at. And yeah, maybe we could get some chips and test for this glucose oxidase and glucose sensing. Then another type of micro resonator was droplet glucose, glycerol. It is like oil, and it's very hygroscopic. It can get water from air and swell about 2 times. And so in our experiment, we measure interferometrically optical diameter of glucose droplet. And the interferometric measurements, they are very sensitive. And so we built a box, humidity chamber, So we are nowadays good in humidity testing. Yeah, some more details, maybe not so important. Another type of micro resonators was polymer microspheres, which one can buy a bottle, and it's used for cell counter calibration. And then we put them on glass plate and shine a helium neon laser, and some of spheres shine bright and some do not shine bright. And that picture changes with temperature. And the idea was to build a temperature sensor and model it. And our surprise was why we see bright spots. Actually, there is light which runs around, and when we see stationary picture. And it was because of surface irregularities that these microspheres, they have defects, and these defects scatter light in some places. Afterwards, it was modification to put same PMMA microspheres, polymer microspheres, a tapered fiber, and make wavelength sensor for laser wavelength determination. And here we have some random way how to put these microspheres, and it is somewhat similar to reservoir computing, what Lorenzo is doing in Trento. Yeah, so we are thinking maybe we can combine this what we got with more advanced machine learning. So we record map of intensities, and the computer should try to determine unknown laser frequency, which map row it matches best. And our second project was on frequency combs. If you pump microsphere with half watt of light, you can circulate gigawatt per square centimeter power, and it's huge power. And Kerr effect starts to manifest, which is usually observed only with pulsed lasers, what Professor Ganev is doing. But here we can do the same with CW lasers. So we get about 10 gigawatts per square centimeter, because this power circulates in a very small square section, about 10 micrometers. So, and Kerr effect, what we observe, it's new laser colors from 2 pump photons, and in microsphere cannot efficiently run all colors, but only those colors which are selected by whispering gallery resonances. And then we get frequency comb. In frequency comb is equidistant lines, but material dispersion is why this frequency comb is not very broad. Because of material dispersion, comb lines come out of resonance with resonator lines. And yeah, so our idea was to use comb for telecommunications. In telecommunications, you usually have many lasers for every color, a different laser, and you can send many colors through optical fiber, which is big advantage. And our vision for future was that we use frequency comb, which has many lines, and we put data on every line. And our first frequency comb was in 2020 during COVID, and it was very irregular. And we noticed that the microsphere has to be pretty round. If it is not round, then there are many micro resonances, and the light can go into other resonances, and then the comb is chaotic. And then we moved to another method of fabrication. We tapered fiber a little bit, and then we melted with arc discharge. and then the spheres became more round. And these are experiments in Riga Technical University, where they have data modulators quite fast and fast oscilloscope. And we could make frequency comb with quite strong intensity of lines and put 10 gigabit per second telecom data. And this was then the most cited out publication 17 times, not too much, but so that is what we can do in Latvia. And here one sees ones and zeros, and below is the so-called eye diagram, and the eye should be open. That means there are no signals in some region, and one can distinguish between 0 and 1. It's typical in telecommunications. And then we got a micro rod resonator fabricated with CO2 laser from Erlangen group, and diameter was corresponding to 100 gigahertz separation between comb lines, which is standard for telecom telecom transfer. And we could get strong comb and put telecom data 40 gigabits per second on 6 lines strongest. And this is now sent to journal for publication. And actually world record is 500 comb lines and terabits per second. It would not be possible to build system with 500 lasers, but with frequency comb you can get 500 lines with 1 laser. So this is motivation for frequency combs. Yeah, and in Latvia we had 3 projects. Igars was main writer and administrator, and mind behind these projects. So then we presently are all in Rashid Ganeyev's project. He is author of 10 books, very amazing, and can learn many things from him and his team. You have seen it. And what we do with Vyacheslav Kim and Inga Brice, we deep code our microspheres in quantum dots. Here is mercury sulfide quantum dots. And what we see is that they start to make green color or yellow color or orange color. And it is third harmonic generation from frequency comb at 1550 nanometers, and also from Raman lines. So if it would be only third harmonic, it would be 550 nanometers. But since there are different colors, so we explain that it is also some frequency generation between 1550 and 1580, a little bit more, yeah. So this Raman effect, Raman comb. And presently, in February started new project, Quantum Initiative of Latvia, and it is one group quantum computing. We are quantum devices. One part works with electrons and we work with photons. And the third part is telecom. And so a little bit about involved people. In theory, we have Professor Andris Janis, who is working on quantum algorithms. And here are his most successful publications. But for us it's difficult how to apply these algorithms. We work more with hardware. And then there is Institute of Solid State Physics, which has clean room, nanofabrication facility, but they like to work only with photolithography, not so much with electron beam because it is time consuming. And Latvia also 2 years ago was bought quantum cryptography setup from ID Quantique, but we talked with people, they said it's fiber in and fiber out, and you cannot really modify inside, and you don't know what is inside. So it's, researchers like to get inside the devices, understand how they work. And in the Institute of Solid State Physics, now we are also in polymer photonics project to make polymer optical chips. Basically, it's photoresist SU8, which is etched, and then one can make ring resonators and waveguides. And polymers, they are sensitive to everything, to temperature, to humidity, to ethanol, to all gases. And one of applications is to make ammonia sensor for pig farms. About more complex structures, we tried to put 4 ring resonators, one after each other, coupled to one waveguide, and we could get resonances. And in such configurations, the first resonator takes most light, and the second resonator shines only when there is light which passed through the first one. So it's not very efficient. And 2 days ago, I learned from Igers and Professor Povesi about these vernier type rings, and it would be a more compact structure. So maybe we will make it and try it. And our PhD student who likes modeling, Christian Dragons, he was in Lund in Professor Mikkelsen group, which works on modeling insect brain with photons. And the idea is that there are nano emitters and nano antenna detectors, and you orient them in some way, which you train on computer model, and then maybe you can make optical chip. And the insects, they have small brain, but still they can fly to gather food and come back like bees. And so maybe one can learn something from nature. And another of my previous master students, Robert Bertis, he is now in Innsbruck in a group which makes ion traps, and they make optical trap between ends of optical fibers. Optical fibers, they have mirror coatings, and they are put very close to the ion, and it's miniature trap. Maybe one can put it on chip. And also they trap in this ion trap silica microspheres together with ion. And it's optomechanics subject. And we visited him, Christian Dragons visited him when we were in Trento. And in Innsbruck there is Spinoff, which makes quantum computer based on calcium ion trap. And the director of it is Juris Ullmanis, who was a student of Iger Sekers, and then he went to Heidelberg, worked on cold atoms, and now moved to Innsbruck. And he is now director of this company, and he wants to sell quantum computers. Us maybe, yeah. This quantum computer has 14 particles. It's not much, but it has some also interesting technical details. For example, it needs several lasers for ion cooling and trapping, and they need to be stabilized. And for that, one can use Fabry Perot resonator and cesium saturation spectroscopy lines, and it needs to run long time, because quantum computer you want to run for days maybe. And yeah, so technology is advancing, and I think it is almost end of my talk. Yeah, in Latvia we are not so ambitious. We need to do maybe some simple things, and yeah, maybe we will write about experience what we learned from Trento. So for new projects. And yeah, Professor Pavesi was in our lab in 2019 when we just moved. Yeah, with this, I would like to thank you for attention.
Not Janis, extremely encouraging also, everything you have been achieving here, made in Latvia, most of it, like with Rashid Ganiev before, all these things made in Latvia. It's really strongly encouraging. And I think Janis is also a very good example on these projects of repatriation. So much talent around, and the possibility to build up a very strong scientific community here based on the long tradition of the country. Any question to Janis? Coffee is waiting, but we have time for...
Before coffee is my speech.
Okay, there is one more speech outside the program here, but maybe some question to Janis first. So just a short question, which is the most fun thing you do now?
Now we do our project on micro resonators ended, so now we have a little bit free time to do what we like. And 2 years ago, I come to university and I see operation hall, and they operate on chicken wings. Microsurgery. And it was training for Ukrainian surgeons over Zoom, and I asked if I can participate and to learn how to make micro sutures with needle under microscope. It's a little bit similar to optical fibers, these very microscopic things. And then we have another project with biology for tremor, genetic tremor. In Latvia, there are institute which makes drugs, organic synthesis institute, and yeah, they want to measure tremor of mouse legs, and for that you need physicists who can help with measuring these vibrations. So it's a little bit of optics.
Excuse me, I have a question.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, so let me actually, so I am Vishwapal from IIT Ropar, India. So the question is, you talked about various kind of sensors. So what is the best efficiency that you have actually obtained with these ring resonator sensors? For example, sensing the temperature or sensing the gases or sensing some humidity. So the sensitivity.
For example, humidity sensing, I can comment. So when we measure humidity, we measure against electronic sensor, and electronic sensors we bought several because you cannot trust one sensor, and they usually measure in 0.1 degree steps humidity, and with our optical sensor we can not see 0.1 degree, we can see 0.3 degrees relative humidity change. So I would say electronic sensor is still better and it is cheaper, and our interferometric sensor is like a very expensive way to measure humidity, but it's good experience.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Arnold.
Yeah. Sooner you put very good question about academic freedom and creativity. I should say that of course we are failing to get for politicians institutional funding, but our research project headed by Rashid provide academic freedom to Janis, to Uldis, to Vyacheslav, to Naresh. It's also, they can do what they want.
Yes.
It's,
And,
but it's
also
very important, yeah.
So a very good example of how everything is connected. That was a picture by Archala at Stanford here. Archala was born in Riga, as some of you might know. And, you know, he said about physics and the connection to other things. Physics is what physicists do. You know, that's the science they do. And then they fool around with medicine, with chemistry, and so on, but use the physical way of thinking, whether it's on chicken wings or on micro resonators. So I think in the twilight zone between the traditional fields, there is a lot to be picked up and so on. And I think you have an excellent opportunity here to do that. So we thank our keynote speaker again, both keynote speakers, Rashid and I